Last week, I made a drum cover video. Some of you liked it, but more importantly, some of you wondered how we did it. So I'm gonna show you exactly how I made that video using a couple of these little guys. These are a GoPro Hero 7 Black and this thing. By this point, I've already showed you how we build the drum riser, how we set up the drums and the cymbals, and even how we unboxed and set up the mics. And then on this side of me, we have a audio interface. And normally my MacBook Pro would be sitting there with Prime multi-track app running. But you guys, being the inquisitive minds that you are, asked a lot more about how we shot the video in terms of the video and the production quality. First thing first, we used a couple of these guys, GoPro Hero 7 Black. In another life, I am a cinematographer, so typically I don't use these little guys. These are considered throwaway, like disposable cameras to people in my field. Typically, the kind of things we shoot are on the very low end, a Blackmagic Ursa Mini, but on the higher end we're using Reds, and on the highest end, I've only got a chance to shoulder it once so far, but the ARRI Alexa. Don't know much about these, but what I do know about the Hero 7 Black is that it has Pro Tune, which allows me to kind of tune the ISO, shutter speed, and aperture, although I don't know if there really is a moving aperture in here. I don't really care. It just basically gives me control over this camera like I would with a DSLR, which I'm shooting this with right now, or like a cinema body. So that's why we use these little guys. I can really control everything it's seeing. That front view you saw during the last video was shot on this camera, which is recording me right now. This is a Canon 5D Mark IV. I shoot everything in 1080 because this is all going on Facebook. It doesn't need to be 4K. I do have the ability to shoot 4K on this camera. However, I do not like the codec on this particular camera, Motion JPEG. That means nothing to most people, but it's just not a great file to work with for videographers and editors. And I also could shoot on the cinema body. However, you're talking about a terabyte of raw video in oversampled to 4.6K for this type of application. It's just too much, it's overkill, I don't need it. I try to set them all to the same color, which is very difficult. So what I do in post is I take down the saturation. So these things kind of overcook all the color. They're just naturally make things too vibrant. I understand why. These are meant to be used outside, maybe on the side of a mountain, somebody's helmet cam when they're snowboarding or mountain biking. And that's kind of the flavor of those videos. Very bright, everything pops. However, I'm coming, like I said, from more of a cinema background where things are a little more flat, things a little more realistic to real life. To put that in perspective, this is what I'm seeing when I'm playing drums. So on that tripod right there would be the camera that I'm holding in my hands, and then here's where I'm sitting. And to my right, we didn't use this angle at all on the last video because I forgot the micro SD cards in my home office, and so we only had enough for the one GoPro, which is the overhead shot. So in the future videos, we'll be using this one, and it's not mounted, but we'll also have one over here, just so you can see a close-up of what my hands are doing, and just gives me kind of some different perspectives. Ultimately, we'll also put one down on the foot cam so you can see what my feet are doing. That last song was very like 4 on the floor kind of driven. It's not the most exciting to watch what my feet are doing anyway. And as you guys know, all the mics and cable runs go around and then up to the audio interface. Then ultimately my computer would be sitting there, and that's how we're gathering audio. For those of you who've never done something like this before with a multi-cam and then the audio is recording separately, here's a cool little trick in Premiere Pro. If you put all of your audio and video clips on the timeline, select them all, right click, synchronize, it'll automatically look at the waveform for every clip. So the GoPro that's spinning up here, the GoPro down there, and that camera on the tripod will all create a waveform with their audio. Even if it's really bad audio, it'll still see a waveform. So, you know, when I snap, you'll see a peak, and when it's quiet, you'll have a valley, etc. Premiere Pro will actually take a look at those and sync all those together. And that's how we get that, sync to that, sync to that, sync to that, and so on. So I'm recording the audio separately through these mics to get the best possible audio. So a little trick that I've learned, and why you see those clacker boards, people aren't clacking those for fun. That clack is actually makes a spike in the waveform, and that's what helps you synchronize via software, in this case Premiere Pro. Or in the old days, or in my case like 2 years ago, I would go through and look at the waveform and see that spike, and I would line them all up on my timeline. I would delete all the audio from the other sources because it sounds terrible, and then take the audio from the interface and the DAW and pipe that in. So you hear these really great sound mix and the really great video production. And now for the exciting part that all of you have been asking about. So the overhead cam, how we got such a smooth, steady, and consistent shot. So right now the side that's coming to me, that's a GoPro. And it's upside down and angled kind of in the center of the kit. It's on the end of this long metal rail, it's aluminum. Counterbalance over here is just a small piece of that rail, which has a couple of Allen screws or Allen bolts that we can move in or out to make sure this thing stays level. This is just a piece of really heavy gauge wire, which is connecting roughly the center of the rail to this, and this is really cool. This is a heavy duty disco ball spinner kit we bought on Amazon. And when I say dirt cheap, I wanna say maybe like 14 bucks. So the aluminum rail was actually fairly expensive. GoPro was the most expensive part of this kit, but all in all, very inexpensive way to get this really cool shot. The way I created it, which is really cool, is like I said, this can slide in and out, so it's easy to make this thing perfectly level, or it can make one side dip down or up depending on if I want a slightly different angle. And that's connected to cabling, which goes back to the power, and then I have a switch down on my right side that I can turn this on and off with. So in a nutshell, that's how we're creating these drum cover videos. I want to give a huge shout out to James Snyder, who commented on the Stage Skins posting of the drum cover. He asked the question, how'd we get the shot? Super cool guy, really like his music. So James, thank you. This is for you. This is how we did it. I'm gonna follow this up with a blog on the Stage Skins site, which shows exactly which products we use to make this happen, and then a total price and where you can get those. So James, if you're wanting to create something similar to this, stay tuned, bud. It's on its way. For the rest of you, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.